Let's talk about the best thing the 49ers have done this offseason. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 49ers Pass Reps. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Super Bowl winning former Raiders offensive coordinator Tom Walsh. Tom, thank you very much for being here today. How are you?
Doing well, Grant. Glad to join you.
Well, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. The app is really easy to use. To create a lineup, all you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats. You can play Prize Picks in over 40 states, including California and Texas. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. So win or lose, you'll get $50 for just playing. Use promo code COHN, COHN, to claim your $50 today. Show is also brought to you by Factor. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. Choose from options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. I use this and you should too. Get started at factormeals.com/Cohn50off and use code Cohn50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Cohn50off at factormeals.com/Cohn50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/Cohn50off. All right, Tom, I want to ask you, in your expert opinion, the Niners have really overhauled their roster this offseason. What do you think the best thing they've done so far has been?
Everyone's going to say, okay, for whom have they picked up as a free agent acquisition? Who have they drafted, etc. I think the best addition that the Niners have made is bringing back Robert Saleh. That is the most improved aspect of the entire organization.
It goes without saying, the previous defensive coordinator was Nick Sorensen. He's now the special teams coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Robert Saleh is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. It seems like they're going from a weakness to a huge strength.
Well, the great thing about it is, he had success prior to getting the job with the Jets. Now he has had that experience in New York and even in Green Bay after the Jets released him. As a head coach, as a coordinator, he's got 4 more years of experience. He probably sees the game a little bit differently than he did previously. He's grown, he's matured, and I think that is just a phenomenal asset. There are aspects about the 49er defense which needed to be fixed, and I think he probably is the guy who has the ability to rectify some of the holes in the defensive scheme, and also evaluate better the strengths and the weaknesses of the players so that he can make necessary adjustments.
Yeah, it seemed with Steve Wilks and even with Nick Sorensen to agree that the Niners could cover. Like, they have Fred Warner, who's really tough to beat over the middle, and they have Diamador Lenore, and they had Charvarius Ward. But in the last couple of years, it seemed like rushing the quarterback and stopping the run, like the whole front of the defense, the wide nine, really wasn't a strength anymore. And it seems like Robert Saleh, he's the one who installed it, brought it here. If anyone can make it a strength again, it probably should be him.
Well, that's correct. See, the bottom line, Grant, first of all, Saleh installed it. Okay. Then you bring in other coordinators who did not have, quote unquote, the grassroots knowledge of the wide nine. So they're trying to implement or continue a defensive philosophy that is not germane to them. And so they're never, it's like the imitator will never be as good as the innovator.
Right. They're trying to reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Unfortunately for those coordinators who followed Robert, they got stuck in a box. Instead of being able to create their own box or think outside the box, they had to operate theoretically inside of Robert Saleh's box, but Robert wasn't there anymore. And so they were trying to figure out how to navigate and negotiate some of the issues where opposing teams found some vulnerabilities in the wide nine scheme.
Yeah. He made such an effort in the draft to bring in run defenders. Then he traded for Bryce Huff. Do you feel like he's put this defense in a position to be good right away, or maybe by the end of the season?
Well, I think they'll be improved. The other thing also now, remember this, you're going to have opposing coordinators calling plays who have some familiarity with attacking the wide nine.
Mhm.
And so, they've grown, they've gotten more knowledgeable. They can study the Niners scheme in the offseason. And then, of course, now the key thing is going to be the tweaks that Robert makes in the scheme. In the meantime, he's not going to just plug holes in the dike anymore. He's going to build a new dike. He's going to put a whole new look on that defensive scheme. And he knows where the weaknesses are, and he knows how to get them fixed probably better than most other people in the league.
I don't know if you felt this way, but last year the Niners seemed stale. I mean, on offense, on defense, it didn't seem like they had very many new ideas, new wrinkles, and it seemed like opponents kind of knew what was coming a lot of the time. It seems like bringing in someone like Robert Saleh, who has changed a lot since he was here 4 years ago, could give the Niners some element of mystery that they need.
Well, I think you're going to also see a renewed energy. Think about this. There are how many players on defense? 2 or 3 who were there when Saleh was first there.
Right, pretty much. I think it was Warner and Bosa and maybe Kevin Givens. 3.
And so there's going to be an excitement from Bosa and Warner that Saleh's back, and then Saleh's got a lot of new faces about which to learn and what they can do best. But there's going to be an energy because they know the success that he had prior to leaving for the Jet job. And, the other thing that's going to be a factor for the Niners also is if they can stay healthy, is to be able to face the schedule they're facing, which is allegedly the easiest schedule in the league.
Absolutely. So you bring back Robert Saleh, you improve tremendously at defensive coordinator. I mean, you have a lot of young players on defense, but under his direction, you think maybe it could be a big improvement over what they had last year. One more thing that's interesting about Saleh too, last time he was here, he was so successful, but he was in his first stint as a defensive coordinator. He improved and changed so much over 4 years. Now he comes back, he's been a head coach. He seems like he's evolved and changed a lot, not just schematically, but as a person since the last time he was here.
Well, Grant, the thing is that he now sees the game in a different vision as a former head coach, former coordinator, than when he was first with the Niners, when he was a new coordinator. So his education, he's gone from an undergraduate to a graduate level. Now he's at the doctorate level. So he has improved that much from his exposure to the game and also his own growth and maturity and how he sees things from a different perspective than he had seen them 5-6 years ago.
What's interesting about him too, he comes back here after getting maybe kind of screwed over by the Jets, or maybe he was at fault. He never really had a great offense there. But the Jets are such a tire fire. He comes back, and if he has a good season, it's possible he'll be back in like the head coach conversation next year, and he could be a one and done. Do you think he's looking at this as a quick springboard out of here, or do you think there's a possibility that he could be actually like the heir apparent to Kyle Shanahan here?
Yeah. I don't think Coach Saleh looks at it like a springboard. To be honest, his concern obviously is to be able to bring the Niners back to their former defensive status, as a quality defense. But by the same token, with the personnel changes they've made, players with whom he had a relationship, who he's brought in, assistant coaches who have a relationship with Saleh, it's almost like the Niners are bringing Saleh back from an administrative perspective in their front office down there, is that they think that maybe he is going to be the heir apparent as a head coach in waiting. Because why would you bring him back and make all these personnel changes, bring all these different coaches in, and then allow him to walk out the door and then bring in some out-of-towner who has to start from square one with lack of familiarity of personnel and coaching staff? I think that he is the guy who's going to be, maybe surreptitiously, but he's the head coach in waiting.
Yeah, there are a couple assistants who might be able to fill in if he leaves, like Gus Bradley. Although Gus Bradley seems like his expiration date may have come and gone at this point as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. And then there's KJ Wright, the young quality control coach, but he's not even a position coach yet. It really does seem like it's Robert Saleh or bust. And I mean, Kyle Shanahan had a bad year last year. Brock Purdy got an extension. He didn't. If, heaven forbid they miss the playoffs again, I wonder what would happen next year.
Well, I don't think, frankly, if they can stay healthy, I think, last year, if I remember correctly, 7 starters missed, I think, a total of 77 games, which is a big hit. Yep. You look at the guys who missed significant time last year, the quality players, you win 6 ball games, and you look at this year's schedule, I think it's hard for the Niners not to win probably 10 games, maybe even 11 games this year with that schedule they're facing if they can stay healthy. That's the key thing is Saleh's a big addition. The improvement in the defense will be significant. But the bottom line is now you got to get your players to game day and they got to play on Sunday for you. That's the key.
Well, the problem is I feel optimistic about the defense. There's youth. There's a great coordinator. But the offense, I mean, we're really holding our breath and crossing our fingers that a 29-year-old running back coming off bilateral Achilles tendonitis and a torn PCL, 37-year-old left tackle, if they stay healthy, but as a play caller, what can you do to help Christian McCaffrey get through this season?
Rotation, not overloading him with too many reps. You've got to, space it out a bit, and you got to pick and choose when you use him. You can't run him 4 to 5 first plays of the game every week, be handoff, play action pass or whatever. And, you can't, I don't think you can keep him where he's getting 25 touches a game. I think his workload has got to get down into the high teens, maybe somewhere between 18 and 20 touches, counting catches and runs. You can't, wear him down. You need to rest him. You need to spot him. And also, by the same token, you need to develop some of those other running backs so in case that McCaffrey does go down, you've got somebody capable to step in and carry the load.
That's, to me, the biggest question with the 49ers this year. I'm enthusiastic about the defense. I like the fact that they went young. I think that Robert Saleh has a vision and knows what he's doing. And I think that he's probably one step ahead of the rest of the league since they don't know what he's going to do here with the 49ers. But on offense, what has changed? What can Kyle Shanahan do differently? Because in the past 2 years, really, his great idea was give the ball to Christian McCaffrey as much as he could. And it's kind of what his dad did with Terrell Davis, and it worked to a point. And I don't think he can do that anymore. So I'd love to see what Kyle Shanahan 2.0 or 7.0 looks like this year.
Well, I think the key thing for me also, besides keeping McCaffrey's workload under control, is what is going to be going on at wide receiver. Because I'm going to get the ball to Kittle.
Yeah.
And you got Jennings on the other side. But the thing about it is, where's my starting other wide receiver? You may have the acquisition from the Rams, might be suspended for the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then, so who's the starting split in? And then also that impacts when I go to 11 personnel when I substitute. You got the kid Ricky Pearsall. I don't know. He's a slot receiver, but I don't think I see him as a starting split in. So I worry about, John Jennings is a flanker. Mm-hmm. Who's the split in?
Well, they got this rookie 4th round pick named Jordan Watkins. I've seen him practice twice. Looks pretty good. I like him, but he's got a long way to go.
I know.
He's better than 5'8" Jacob Cowing.
We're early in June, okay? Yeah. And, to project a rookie to be a starting wide receiver, that's a big leap. I mean, you're not dealing with a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. You're not dealing with one of these Ohio State great college wide receivers transitioning to the NFL. And even they struggled early. And so,
I guess the answer is supposed to be Brandon Aiyuk, right? They gave him $30 million a year. He tore his ACL and MCL late October last year. It's unclear when he's coming back. Every few weeks he posts something on social media, which is kind of hard to understand, but it seems like he's still upset about something. Julio Jones went on a podcast and said he's still upset he didn't get enough targets in the Super Bowl. That was kind of Kyle Shanahan's job. Brandon Aiyuk the next day posted a picture of Julio Jones on his social media, kind of saying like, yeah, I agree with Julio. Maybe feels the same way. What do you make of a disgruntled wide receiver who's still disgruntled after getting paid?
I think the majority of disgruntled players in the NFL are all wide receivers.
I think that's something to that.
It comes with the position.
Yeah.
They all are out there in space. They want to be on the highlights on ESPN and other sports talk shows. They want the football, throw me the damn ball, like what Keyshawn Johnson once said. They can never get enough balls targeted. But I never did remember Jerry Rice or John Taylor complaining about not getting enough targets.
That was before my time, but yeah, I don't remember. Maybe it's a generational thing.
Well, yeah, social media and 24-hour a day sports talk shows and all that has changed the focus where now players are thin-skinned and they're worried about how they're perceived by the public and about how they're spoken by the media, and they want the ball. Look at Devontae Adams. He couldn't survive at the Raiders. He couldn't survive with the Jets, and now hopefully he'll be a happier camper in Los Angeles with Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball.
Well, I think it's funny. Like the Niners really used his prolonged, awkward, messy contract negotiation from last year as an excuse for their bad season last year. They're like, look, we didn't get our business done. We had all these distractions, and it really carried over. We never really got to lock in. And this offseason is going to be different. And you see all these veterans showing up for OTAs. Trent Williams was practicing yesterday. I can't remember the last time he practiced in an OTA. It seems like it's important. But every couple of weeks, Brandon Aiyuk has the power to just hijack the spotlight with one post on social media that doesn't even mean anything.
Well, it's a maturity thing, obviously.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, now remember this. The Niners season was 5 or 6 weeks shorter this year than it was the previous year. Right. So now those players last year had fatigue that lingered through the middle of February from the previous season, where this year they were home free and healing and mending their wounds, a month and a week earlier this year. So they should be healthier and they should be hungry. They should be upset. They should want to prove that they were better than the way they played last year. So there's a little bit more motivation as well as the additional rest time.
Right. It wasn't just a bad year. It was an embarrassing year. And so now you have Christian and George and Trent and all these guys trying to show that they're a playoff team still, especially with this easy schedule. And you got Brandon Aiyuk, who isn't quite on the same page. I guess you can handle one malcontent diva wide receiver. I guess every team has one.
It's hard to go through the rosters of anybody in the NFL. You could go any team you want and pick out a guy, most likely a wide receiver, who was a little bit disenchanted because he's not being featured. He's not catching enough touchdown passes. He's not having enough targets. They're like the joke about 7-Eleven. They're always open. These wide receivers then you go to look at the tape and they go, oh my God, the guy's got two guys over him, short and long, and he still thinks he's open. They always think they're open.
But the tough thing about Aiyuk, I guess, in this situation is like they paid you all this money and you're on the same team as Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. So you're not necessarily the first option all the time. You're not Julio Jones or Jerry Rice. You're one of the good players on this team. Kind of tough if you want to elevate yourself ahead of George Kittle, who's future Hall of Famer.
Well, and the other thing too, now remember, let's look at the offense. You're not in Cincinnati where you're pass first ball club. Minnesota last year, they had some pretty good receivers. The run game was kind of an afterthought, even in Minnesota. You get to the 49ers, to be honest, it's a run, play action, and then a drop back game. Right. So the drop back passing game is number 3 on the ladder. And so if you're the starting wide receiver making $30 million or more, you're going to see more runs and more play action pass where you might be a target on a play action pass than you are going to see on pure drop back, because it's not going to happen on 1st and 10. Go back and look at how many pure drop backs when the game is level and even, and the score and all that's basically in a neutral zone? Are the Niners going to just drop back on first down and throw it?
That's why I feel like no wide receiver is worth that much money in this system, because to pay a wide receiver like Justin Jefferson money or Brandon Aiyuk money, you should be the kind of offense that can drop back and throw to him and win games. But the Niners have never been that kind of offense. It's all about Christian, right? It's all about handing him the ball or pretending to hand him the ball. Every play starts that way.
Correct. And the other thing is, let's back up a bit. The quarterback you have in your system is not the kind of guy who can throw the type of balls that you want to a $30 million wide receiver. If I'm paying a guy $30 million, I'm looking at how many times I can get the ball over the top of the defense. Can this guy stretch and get beyond the depth of the defense? And Aiyuk is not in the same caliber as those other receivers who you mentioned with the Bengals and with the Vikings. And so,
yeah, he seemed like Justin Jefferson with less speed, or he seemed like a good, not great wide receiver whose production was elevated because of the players around him.
Correct. And you look at the types of passes which he is targeted, there's a different concept in the passing game here than you see in Cincinnati and you see in Minnesota. It's a different style. The ball goes down the field more in Cincinnati and Minnesota than it does in San Francisco. And part of that is the coach's philosophy. And also part of it's related to the quarterback's arm.
Part of it's related to the offensive line.
Yeah, it's all tied together. It has to all function together.
I guess if you don't have if you have a quarterback who can't get the ball down the field, then what's the point of giving him great pass protection? Because the ball is going to have to come out really quick anyway.
You don't have the relay man coming from right field, with a cutoff to the shortstop or second baseman or first baseman or whatever to get the ball to third or home plate on a play. The bottom line is you could have a great wide receiver running open and is pretty going to be able to get the ball 53, 55 yards down the field, or is he restricted to, if the ball's not in a receiver's hands by the time he's at 45 yards down the field, is he going to get it if he's beyond that, even if he's open?
Yeah, we've seen Purdy struggle with some deep passes down the sideline. They're either flat or a little short.
Yeah, the majority of the big plays for the Niners come off of the deep crossing routes that are more of a diagonal type of a pattern than a vertical pattern. Right. So when you think about the play action and the passes and the big chunk plays to Kittle on the deep crossing route, or Jennings, or even Aiyuk on the deep crossing route going from left to right, they're diagonal patterns, not vertical patterns. So the ball is being caught somewhere between 17 and 22 yards across the field, as opposed to vertically catching it at 45 or 48 yards down the field.
I see. So when you were coaching with the Raiders and you were scouting quarterbacks, you needed to find a quarterback who had the arm to throw the go route up the sideline and hit a receiver, Cliff Branch, in stride, 45 yards up the field. That's what you needed.
Well, here's the thing. And we had Jim Plunkett, and he could get the ball up the field. As he got older and he had shoulder injuries and all that, and Cliff Branch was still playing for us, we knew that the ball had to get into Branch's hands at 53 yards.
53.
That was,
wow.
If the ball wasn't there by then, he was going to outrun the arm of Jim Plunkett in his older years. And so we had to do more things with the receivers and the route stems and everything, and still beat the defensive back vertically so that the ball could get there before 53 yards.
That's very interesting. So you would have liked a quarterback like Russell Wilson. He had the arm to do that.
Correct.
Jalen Hurts had the arm to do that.
Yeah. Although they don't really feature that type of an offense passing game in Philadelphia. But, you look at the guys like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Mahomes, although they really struggled. Kansas City, people don't realize they had a horrible deep passing game this past season. A lot of it was because of the lack of the quality wide receivers to which Mahomes was used that weren't there this year.
Tom, real quick, I got a question. I was watching a documentary recently. and there was a clip about Bo Jackson and the Raiders. And there was a play where Bo Jackson takes a pitch to his right, does a 180 spin in the backfield, and runs back to his left. Do you remember that play? Did you draw that up?
Yeah, that was a design reverse to Bo. See, we actually spent time in practice trying to block it to run the pitch reverse. Where we start to flow to the right, and Bo pivots and comes back to the left. And we did it a couple times in practice. This is so true. And it's not timing up well. And Bo finally says, okay, look it. Y'all just go ahead and block the pitch like I'm running to the right. I'm going to reverse myself, and I'll run it myself without the blocking. Just get everybody out of my way. And that's what happened. So we said, fine. So we called a play against the Broncos, pitched the ball, and Bo takes a couple steps, bam, pivots, goes back around, and goes for a touchdown. But yeah, you got to listen to your players, okay? And, you got a great player. Hey, the guy understands what needs to be done, and he has the talent to get it done. He says, just run the play like we're running the play. I'll take the rest. I'll do the rest of it myself. And hey, okay, go.
Would you have drawn up that play for any other running back?
No. Honestly, as great as Marcus was, super talented, he wasn't Bo.
Top 5 greatest running backs of all time at their peak.
Oh my goodness. How far back do you want to go?
You can just go as far back as you want.
Well, you got to look at guys like Jim Brown. You got to look at Barry Sanders in Detroit. You got to Bo's average is over 5 yards for his career. You got to look at Marcus. You got to look at Marshall Faulk, because now you want to talk about a wide receiver, a running back who catches passes, or are you talking about a pure runner? So
that's an interesting question. I was thinking pure runner.
A pure runner. I tell you, I would not turn down Bo for anybody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. In my book, he's number one.
That's so interesting. Like Jim Brown, love you. Thanks for all your records. But really, if I had one game, I'm going with Bo.
Oh, I'll take Bo. Because you know what? Okay, here's another thing about Bo. We never had him for mini camps. We never had him for training camp. He's playing baseball. I mean, I remember when he leads off the All-Star game and hits a home run on the first pitch over the center field wall of the All-Star game. Yeah. Okay, so we get Bo. It's week 7, week 8, week 9. I remember Howie Long used to look up. He'd come into practice. Hey, when's Bo coming? When's Bo getting? Everybody, and then when Bo came, everybody wanted to watch Bo practice.
Yeah. And like he was like a different species.
Oh, it lifted the whole team. And so anyway, we're playing the Bills one week. And so we're going to split Bo out at wide receiver on the backside of slot. Okay. And run him on a bang 8 route and a skinny post. So we ran it one time in practice. And throws the ball to him. I said, do you need to rep this anymore? He goes, no, I got it. So then come Sunday, we called the play. He'd run it one time in practice as a split receiver off the ball on the formation off the line. Mark Wilson drops back, throws in the ball for a touchdown pass.
Wow.
1 rep in practice.
Wow.
That's it. See, we had a philosophy at the Raiders. We were not a Pete and repeat team. I used to kid the guys. I said, now look at, you do it one time correctly, that's it. I'm not running this play 5 stinking times. If you can get it done correctly the first time, we're on to something else. But if you don't get it done correctly the first time, we're going to have to repeat it somewhere in the practice session to polish it up, because we're not leaving the field without executing the play properly. We're not teaching you off a stinking film. You're going to do it on the field before you go home, so it's locked into your muscle memory. And so you got guys like Bo. We're one and done. James Lofton. You got Timmy Brown. You got Todd Christensen. You got Mervyn Fernandez. You got Willie Galt. Cliff. We're going to run it one time. You do it correctly. Hey, we're on to the next play.
Well, as you guys can see, Tom Walsh has been drawn up plays for 40, 50 years. Yeah. So Kyle Shanahan, it seems like he's got a little bit of writer's block. He's lost a little bit of his creativity. So we're going to help him evolve. This is Tom's software called Pass Reps. tell you a little bit about it, but first we want to show how it works. So, Tom, here's a play for George Kittle, essentially a replay. Why don't you take us through it?
Okay. The thing I love about this play, and we ran it for years, we had some really good tight ends, Raymond Chester, a guy named Dave Casper, a guy named Todd Christensen, and even Ethan Horton, Mike Dial. The bottom line is we wanted to get the ball to a receiver, be it a tight end, a running back, a wide receiver. And you don't want to go through the whole game and say, well, God, I called 5 pass plays to that guy, and the defense outguessed me, and the guy was covered for 5 snaps. We couldn't get him the ball. Mm-hmm. So our whole thing is we're going to give you options. We're going to give you opportunities to read the coverage, you and the quarterback, and you're going to be the featured guy on this play call. And so you're going to have opportunities to go to the post, go to the corner, or hook it up, or run an in route, depends upon the coverage, so I can get you the ball. And see, that this was a Y read. Our buzzword for this was Yankee, because a Y for the tight end.
Got it.
So, basically, by the time the tight end gets up the field, maybe 10 yards or so, he should be able to see the coverage. For example, if it's a vacated middle and the middle field is open and the safeties are wider than he is, he's going to rock and roll and hit the hole. The quarterback will be able to throw him the ball down the middle of the field. And see, against cover 2, bam, right there. I'm going to hit him with the ball. He always would save the middle, let the quarterback bring you to the open space. He'd catch the ball between 18 and 22 yards. If I were still in the cover 2 scheme and the safety on my halves of the field was inside of me or head up, I'm going to take it to the corner and break it to the corner and run the short corner route, because there are fewer defenders over whom the quarterback has to throw the ball to get the ball to me on the outside.
I see.
And then if the middle of the field's closed, let's say you're playing a cover 3 zone concept, then I don't have the post option. I don't have the corner option, but I'm going to hook the thing up. So now I can run the hook route, and bam, there I am. So I can get you the ball.
I see. And the idea is it's your best player. It's your best receiver. There should be a play where everything the defense decides to do is wrong, that there's nothing they can do to take him away short of mugging him.
You know, the funny thing, the whole thing came about from the concept of, if I had Michael Jordan playing basketball for me, I would want to be able to go through the game and say, God, we couldn't get Michael Jordan enough touches, when the guy's a great player. So the same thing, whether you're a wide receiver or a tight end or a running back, I've got to have the option and read routes for you so that we can win regardless of what the defense is doing. And then now the great thing about this, you can take it to 3D. And the best thing about this, Grant, also is we have created the technology to put the camera in the helmet of a player with the same perspective as you get. So we can be the quarterback. If you want to be Purdy and reading the defense and making the reads, you can be Purdy. If you want to be Kittle running the route up the field, we did this for Tony Gonzalez in Kansas City on this read route. And, hey, he goes, oh, this is great stuff. And the thing about it is, it's all about reps. I only have so many routes in my legs as a receiver. I've only got so many throws in my arm as a quarterback. But how can we give the players the mental reps? The old Brett Favre joke was, I could be sitting in my lazy boy rocker down in, Mississippi, having a 6-pack of cold ones, and I can go through my reads and my progressions and get 1,000 mental reps about where to go with the ball on Sunday without throwing the ball. I mean, think about this. If you're in the NFL, we know you can throw the ball. We know you can run. We know you can catch. Can we give you enough mental reps so that you can anticipate and react to what's going to happen on Sunday so that we can get you the ball? And that's the beauty of the whole thing. You can put your camera in. I think there's 250 camera positions in the software. And you can be in a player, you can be, you got a blimp view, you've got a tight end zone view, you got a wide angle sideline view. You can see it from the defensive player if you want to be the safety on defense or a linebacker. So you can go from 2D to 3D by just hitting the 3D button, and you can pick your perspective in which you want to be looking at the play.
The link to the product is on the screen. It's $14.99 special preseason price right now. Tom will be adding new plays on a regular basis, and it's going to be updating the rosters with player number changes. So it updates weekly for the upcoming opponent with different home and away uniforms. And this is run optimally on a desktop. You can use it on your phone, but it's better to use it on a desktop or a laptop or a tablet. And yeah, check it out today. It's a really nice tool, and we'll be using it throughout the season to sort of illustrate our points when we give Kyle Shanahan suggestions, because it's good to show your work as opposed to just tell him what to do.
Yeah, and then the other thing that's great, Grant, we're going to look at the opponent for the upcoming game, and we'll come up with a pattern that we'll put on the screen, and then which you can feature, we'll talk about for the play of the week that the Niners might want to add to their repertoire.
That's right. Play of the week, featured by sponsored by Pass Reps, created by Tom Walsh. All right. Before we get out of here, Tom, I want to ask you, we've talked about how the Niners have improved this offseason, what Robert Saleh means to them. How about comparing them to the rest of the division? The Rams, the Cardinals, the Seahawks. Why don't we start? Let's go team by team. What do you think of what the Seahawks did this offseason? They had a 10-win team last year. A couple of years before that, 9 wins, and they get rid of Geno, they get rid of DK, they get rid of Tyler Lockett, the whole new look on offense. What do you think?
I cannot see them being as successful as they were last year or the previous 2 years. They've given away too much of their offense, their experience at wide receiver immensely. And Geno Smith, you look at his stats this past season, the guy did put up some yards. He threw some touchdown passes. They responded to his leadership. They brought in, the former USC guy at quarterback, and they brought in a new offensive coordinator now this year. They've made another switch in that respect. And they might be improved on defense, but I think I like their running backs. They got 2 darn good running backs. They got the UCLA kid. They got the Michigan State kid. Those 2 guys are premier. They can play anywhere in the league. I tell you that I question they're a little bit short in my mind in the tight end room. I'm not a fan of who they've got being a dominant factor. And then they got the Ohio State kid and wide receiver on one side, and then the rest of the offensive pass catchers are like, crapshoot.
What do you think of Cooper Kupp at this point in his career?
I hate to say it, as great a success that he's had, I look at him, the receiver, once your legs go, especially when you start to get to that age, I think he's seen his better days. He'll catch some balls for them, but I don't think he's going to be the same kind of weapon that he was with the Rams when he was really going full bore a couple of years ago, lighting it up.
I agree. Do you think that's the team most likely to finish last in the division?
I tell you, it's going to be Arizona should finish ahead of Seattle. I can make a few points maybe why they won't in Arizona, but right now I think Seattle is going to be the cellar dweller in the NFC West.
What do you think of Arizona? It's year 3 of Jonathan Gannon. It's year 7 of Kyler Murray. They got to do something, right? They made a bunch of moves on defense in free agency.
They have. They've improved immensely on defense. My concern is the quarterback spot. You just mentioned Kyler Murray going into year 7. If he can't get it done now, they do have some consistency with their staff finally. I think it's time for Arizona to be shopping for a different quarterback after this coming season. If Murray cannot get it done, you brought in a wide receiver from Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. You've made some improvements in the run game. You worked on the offensive line a little bit. My whole thing hinges upon what Murray's going to do as a quarterback, as a passing quarterback. And a lot of their passing game success over the years has been outside the numbers. And he's marginal. I mean, let's put it honest. The guy's short. He's 5'9" and change. You can eat soup off his head. He has trouble throwing the ball between the numbers. His passing
that's not going to change.
And that's not going to change. I go back, even go back to the days when Saleh was the coordinator for the Niners back then. Arizona's big passes always were on the outside, the 10-yard, 12-yard outside the numbers.
To Hopkins.
Yeah, you did not get gashed by them throwing the ball in the middle of the field.
No.
So, that's the toughest thing for can he do something offensively at quarterback besides his legs to be able to get them in the playoffs?
Yeah, it was interesting last year coming off that torn ACL. He ran like less than he had really ever in his career, didn't help the offense. He turns 28 in August. He needs to show that his legs are such an asset at this point in his career to put up with all of his immense limitations as a passer. And at his age, teams might start to feel like, you know what, your legs aren't that big of an asset anymore.
Michael Vick went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
When he began to realize that his legs were not what they were when he was younger coming out of Tech. And he finally realized that I've got to do some more things in the passing game. I've got to make better decisions. I've got to be able to process better. I've got to be more accurate. I've got to have better timing to be able to compensate for my improvisational plays that are not as frequent as they were a few years ago.
And it seems that the Cardinals are so invested in Marvin Harrison Jr., who really didn't live up to expectations last year, maybe his fault, maybe Kyler's fault, that if he has another disappointing year in terms of production, they might feel compelled to get a different quarterback who can get the most out of Marvin.
Well, the other thing is a lot of limitations with Marvin Harrison are predicated upon what Kyler Murray can do at quarterback. Correct. So therefore, I can't utilize all of what Marvin Harrison is because I got a guy who can't get in the ball in as many types of throws that I would like to be able to make that Marvin Harrison Jr. is physically able to run those routes. But if I can't get the quarterback to deliver the ball either accurately or make the proper reads, Marvin's dying on the vine out there.
Yeah, how many comebacks and 12-yard outs can you really throw and run?
Yeah. How many different stems do I have to have running those routes to give the defensive back a different look? And they're going to just sit there and wait for the 12-yard out or the 10-yard out or the 10-yard hook or whatever. And they're not going to worry about, the in routes and the deep opposite routes and things like that because they don't exist. So,
and then on the other side, you got Trey McBride, the tight end who just got paid a lot of money, seems promising. But again, can you fully utilize him with a quarterback who can't really throw the ball over the middle?
Correct. You can play a cover 2 shell on them all day to roll up on Marvin. And now McBride's got to beat the linebackers down the middle and split the safeties. But then can Ty Murray make that throw where he has to get it up and over the top and get it down underneath between 18 to 22 yards?
That's one thing that Brock Purdy does very well.
Correct.
Okay, which team do you like better on paper, Niners or Cardinals?
Oh, Niners.
Okay. What about the Rams?
Well, see, I tell you what, Stafford came back to me. That was huge because they don't have anything after Stafford. I mean, let's be honest. And so and then you bring in Devontae Adams. That's a quality wide receiver. I know he didn't do well at the Raiders. He didn't do well in New York for whatever reasons. But I tell you, you got Matthew Stafford. So now if I'm Devontae Adams, I'm not working in Vegas about running a bunch of 8, 9, 10-yard routes. I can get down the field. I can run the deep end. I can run the deep corner routes. I can run the post route. I can run the 9 route. So my whole tree as a wide receiver is open for me to exploit because Stafford's got the arm horizontally and vertically to get me the ball anywhere on the field. So I'm a happy camper if I'm Devontae Adams. And then you got Puka Nacua. Hey, the guy's going to catch a fewer balls than he did last year and the year before because Adams is going to get his balls. Okay, let's be honest. Now, that's another thing they're going to have to decide, coexist. That, he's not going to be the number one guy anymore. Devontae Adams will be the number one guy. Devontae Adams is 6 points on any given play.
Mm-hmm.
Kua is not 6 points on any given play.
That's true. He doesn't score touchdowns like that.
Correct. He can run after the catch. Devontae Adams can go over the top beyond the defense. So I only got to beat one guy to get 6 points with Devontae Adams. But Nacua, I got to get him the ball, and he's going to have to break some tackles and run to score. Devontae it's like Branch. Hey, I'm over the top. We're going deep. I only got to beat one guy.
What do you think about their running back?
I got the arm to get it there. And the running back is better than people think in L.A. The kid's got some tools. He's got some talent. And the other thing is, Sean McVay, I like the versatility that he shows on his offense. Now that he has Stafford and Devontae Adams, along with Nakua, and then he's got the running back, they're my favorite to win the division, despite the fact that the Niners have the easiest schedule.
Yeah, the Rams have a much more difficult schedule. They have that first place schedule. I think they have the Eagles, some tough teams. Ravens, I don't know.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're playing all the playoff contenders.
So the Niners have a shot. They have an easy schedule. They're on paper the second best team in their division, and maybe they could actually pull out a division win if, I don't know, if Matthew Stafford goes down. That team's in a lot of trouble. Unless you like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, no, that's over. The one thing for the Niners, for which my major concern is, can they stay healthy?
Yeah,
they cannot go through another year, even with this week's schedule, by having their top 7 players miss 77 or more games.
Yeah,
I don't care. Saleh's not going to be able to suit up and play. You got to have the players out there. You lose a Warner, you lose a Bosa with a hamstring and a groin, or you lose the guy for whom you just traded with Philadelphia, or you lose a corner. It's a whole different game for you. I've got to get the players from OTAs through mini camp, through training camp, and into the season healthy and on the field.
Well, for the main guys who missed the most time last year, McCaffrey, Aiyuk, Trent Williams, Greenlaw. Niners don't have to worry about Greenlaw missing time anymore because he's gone. The other 3 guys on offense, I feel like there's still major question marks this year. If they play a lot and play well this year, the Niners are in business. If not, they seem a lot like the team that they had last year, except with Robert Saleh.
Well, that's the other point, which you just touched on a little bit, is that with Saleh, your points against you scored on defense should be fewer than they were the previous 2 years. So now I don't think the Niners have to go into a game thinking I've got to score 27 or 28 every week, because the defense now should be able to keep it to 14 to 17, maybe at the most. So now we're back to scoring 21 or 24 rather than having to score 28 or more to win, because the opponent's not going to score 27, 28, or 31 where it's a track meet. And so I think Saleh is going to help the offense, because the defense is going to get more 3 and outs, and they're going to stop opponents from scoring as long as the Niners are not giving the ball over with turnovers on offense. And so I think Saleh is worth a couple wins because of his ability to be able to school the defense to play more soundly.
Yeah, the Niners lost so many one-score games last season. You'd think maybe if they had Robert Saleh last year, they might have gone to the playoffs.
Well, think about it. How many one-score games were they in and lost?
6 or 7, and they lost all of them at one? Yeah.
Yeah, correct. They won one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at 5 or 6 more wins last year would have put them at 11 wins or 10.
Right. And not just the defense, but also the special teams was even worse than the defense last year. Now that it seems like maybe they'll have a normal special teams.
Well, they've made strides on both special teams as well as on defense with personnel as well as with coaches. So you know what? That could be worth 4 or 5 more wins right there. I think they should win at least 10 games.
10 games? That should be the bar right there. And if not, we could see Robert Saleh as the head coach of this team next year. Be very interesting.
You never know.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you check out 49ers Pass Reps, www.passreps.com/Niners, $14.99 for the season. Great value. Tom's going to be updating it weekly, adding new plays, and we're going to be using it when we do our shows during the season to give Kyle some suggestions, some food for thought. Last time we gave Kyle food for thought, we just suggested using 11 personnel more often, and things didn't go well from there. So we'll have to pick our spots. Thanks, Tom.
Kyle's Kyle, okay?
Take care, everyone. I'll be back later today with my dad for the Cohn Zone. Stay tuned around 2 o'clock.